Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Rebuild It. This week we're going to actually take this little bad boy on our drive and you can see what it looks like, feels like driving it. And tell me more about what you think about the timing gear sound, which I hate. So let's get on with the episode and see what we get done this week. I want to make the interior as close to factory exact as I can. I kind of want it to be along the lines of the 66 Mustang that I did, which means finding out exactly what this thing had on it and trying to get it back to what a 4-speed 68 Firebird would have had in it, not necessarily what this one came out with from the factory, because the more I look at it, I don't think this was an original 4-speed car. I think it was a console automatic that shifted in the floor. The ones that I've seen for a 4-speed have the circle shaped, hole right here. And check this out. We'll pull this up here. Matter of fact, I'll just take this off real quick. Obviously, that is not a factory hole. And this shifter, it's a Hurst shifter. It is not the original correct shifter that a 68 would have had. They would have been round. See how this was more of a flat shape? They would have been round. And somebody's put in the reverse light switch there. So when I get it in reverse, it's supposed to kick that on. And you can see how the tunnel was just kind of like cut out, like it's not factory. So it does have, however, this factory riveted in brace right here. So that leads me to believe it was for a console for an automatic, because we know there wasn't one on the column. So anyway, I want to probably just take this console out and see what's involved and I know it's going to be expensive, but whatever the original Hurst 4-speed shifter would have been for a 68 Firebird 4-speed car, I want to get it and put it in here and get the correct console in black. That's what I've always wanted on one of these cars, was that. So even if this car didn't come with it, that's what I'm going to make it. And I think this console is just sitting in here. Yeah, it's not even bolted down. We'll find all that stuff. I think I'm like 99% sure that the transmission's a Muncie. I got to find out if it's an M21 or 22. I think the 22 is the Rock Crusher. We'll just see what we find out about that, but I want to find the original one. Also, I went to a parts store a minute ago and got a new air filter, since I had that one off a minute ago. That thing was so clogged up, and there was no markings or brand or anything on the old one, and the guy at the parts store helped me find one that just matched it by size. But that should fit in there. Yep, like that. So that will help it to actually have some air to breathe when it's running. And the other thing I bought was some light bulbs, because I got some lights not working on this thing, so I want to check that out, see if it's just bulbs or what's going on, because I want to get this thing where I can at least drive it around and get the feel of it before I tear into it. All right, so I'm in the back area here trying to check out what's going on with these lights. And one of the cool things, I think I showed you earlier about these Firebirds, they had the side marker Pontiac emblem that lit up. So I wondered why these weren't lighting up. Well, there's the inside, there's the wire that goes to it right here, and there's the bulb socket. There's a bulb in there, but there's no wire coming out. So that, I'm either going to have to try to find a replacement or try to take this apart and see if there's a way to get the wire back in there and maybe solder it in. So same thing on the other one. The wires are pulled out. So I'll work on that a little bit. And I think one of these tail lights was bad. This one's bad. Both of them are lighting up over here. Okay, so I've got the tail lights all working. Just needed some cleaning of the bulb sockets and use some dielectric grease. Okay, so I've got a new bulb installed in this little socket that goes in the side marker, and I've stripped my wire back. I'm going to stick it up in that socket just to see what happens here. And we have a cool Pontiac light, so that means we do have good juice back here where this goes, so that's good. I'm going to check the other one the same way, and then we'll see if we can figure out how to get those things apart. Either that or order some replacement ones. One other thing I want to do to this car before I start driving around for the next few weeks, just to see what all is wrong with it, is just this window. Like I said, this window is terrible. There's like, I don't know, 1/2 to 3/4 inch gap up here at the top, and it's almost winter and it's cold, so I want to get where I can shut the windows all the way up. But before I adjust the window, the door gaps are so terrible that if I adjust the window first, then adjust the door gaps, my window adjustment will still then be off. So I want to try to figure out a way to get this door moved. It needs to move back to the back, and the hinges are not very easily accessed. They're right in here, the bolts that we need to move, but it's going to be hard to move them and then tighten them back up to adjust it, to check it without the fender being off. So I'm going to see if I can do that with the fender on, because I really don't want to take all that off too. Another issues with this door is we've got this like real loose floppy interior door handle, which I'm sure there's a little latch in there that'll probably need to be replaced. We have a really nice gap up here, and this gap right here is pretty good too. It's a little tight, but not bad. And this one, you feel like right here, you feel the resistance where it opens the latch, and our interior handle just has a little bit of play, and that's probably just normal. And that one shuts really nice. Of course, the one that gets the most use is the driver's, over 50 years. So I'm sure when I take this door panel off, that everything in there is going to need to be probably just replaced as far as the latches and all that. But there's all sorts of different adjustments in there to make this window move back and forth, or in and out, back and forth, up and down, all that. So first, let's try to get the door where we want it, and then we'll tackle the window. All right, on closer inspection, I realized that you cannot adjust that door, as far as I can tell, with the fender on, because you just can't get to those bolts. So to remove the fender is like a big deal. I mean, you got to get all that trim piece off down there. You got to get the hood off because the hinges attached to the fender in there. There's just a whole bunch to get the fender off. So I don't really want to deal with that right now. I just want to get this thing where it's easily driven, and so I can check it out over the next few weeks. So I'm just going to take the door panel off and try to get that window adjusted up, and then do a few other little things. Then we'll drive this thing and see what problems arise after messing with it for a couple weeks. When you look underneath it, everything that has fluid in it in this car is leaking, other than the brakes. I haven't seen any brake fluid leak. I guess I should check the reservoir and make sure there's even any fluid in it. But the rear end is leaking, transmission is leaking, the coolant is leaking. I showed you up at there on top. It might have a rear main seal leak. I'm not sure if that's it, or if it's just coming out of the transmission and running out the bell housing. There's lots of leaks and stuff to fix, so for sure I have to take the engine out and do a bunch of that, but not right now. Okay, so I have adjusted the glass up as high as it goes, and I'm still too low on the door. And here's my latch. See all this play in the door latch? It's not this, because it moves instantly with the latch. You can see this piece right here moving exactly with it. And when you look into, you can see that piece move up and down in there. It's on the latch. So it moves that far in there before it actually engages the latch. So I would say that's a latch issue. I still have not figured out the deal with the the glass. So if I crank this all the way up, there's where we are. We're still probably 1/4 to 3/8 or so down too low. So I don't know if there's some other adjustment that I don't know about, like whether the glass has slid down on the actual track part. See how there's holes in this glass, and there's these things here. I don't know how big the hole in the glass is. If you loosen these up, if the glass can slide in and out of these, or if there's some other adjustment I don't know about. So I'll start researching that. Okay, so I have decided to not go ahead and tear this thing apart right now with the, taking the hood off and the fender and trying to get the door gaps right and all that, so I can get this window up. And if we do drive it into this winter, it won't freeze us out too much because we have heat. So I'll put this thing all back together, and then we'll tackle that when we start on the interior. For now, I want to try to get this thing where it's not leaking everywhere. And I know the rear main seal, I can't do anything about that till I pull the engine, but one of the things we could do would be to go ahead and get this differential gasket ordered. So I wanted to kind of identify, make sure that we actually have the same differential that this thing came with from the factory. Looks like we have a 10-bolt diff. It's been leaking out the bottom. And I tried a while ago to find some numbers. There's some really faint numbers on the other side, but almost too hard to read. And I would say we'd be safe to order the gasket for just the stock differential. Not seeing any other. There's supposed to be some kind of a stamp back here that tells what the gear ratio is. But I'm not seeing that. If we get on the other side of it, which is not easy to do. Here's a number here. It's almost impossible to read. It looks like it ends in NF. And then on this other side, GM54. There's no rust. I don't see any rust anywhere back in here. It looks like all the original floor pans, but just lots of grease and grime. It just looks like this thing is never had anything done to it underneath. It just needs everything. It needs all new bushings. How cracked those are. But one of the things I want to try to do is especially to identify the transmission, because I want to try to find the original shifter for this thing. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I drove this thing a while ago. My wife and I went out and took it on its first actual real drive, and it drove so much better than I figured it would be like the 66 fastback, Mustang fastback that we had. But this thing drove so much better. I don't like the sound of it with that timing gear versus the timing chain, which I'm going to see what you guys think about that, but I'm thinking I'm going to change that back to a timing chain. But the shifter, once you get it going in first, it goes through the gears like really nice, but the actual shifter itself is just really hard to find the gears to start with. It's just real, like it grabs everything, and it's hard to get it in reverse and hard to get it in neutral. It locks into first sometimes and you can't get it out. So I'm pretty sure that's not the transmission. I'm pretty sure it's the shifter. And I've also been doing some research and found out that this console is from a Camaro, because all Firebirds had the wood grain, unfortunately, console, and that center section up there. That should all be wood grain. So I'll probably get that out of there, try to sell that console, and try to find an original wood grain. But if I can't, I'll just have to buy a reproduction. They make some really good reproduction ones now that look just like it. I've got quite a bit of money to spend. Not quite a bit of money to spend. Quite a bit I need to spend on the interior, because it needs that. I told you, it's got that cracked dash that needs to be replaced. I need to find the console. That little piece up around there is cheap. The shifter is probably going to be $400 or $500 just for the shifter. But like I said, before I order that, let's get underneath and see if we can identify the transmission. So see what I mean about leaking from everywhere. It's just pouring stuff out. Okay, so I'm under the car here. It's probably leaking from this. This is the tail shaft of the transmission. So that's soaking wet. This cross member here is all soaking wet. Transmission up here is all soaking wet. It was dripping out of the bell housing there, but you can see that's where that was right under that. So that can either be the rear main seal or the transmission leaking front, through the bell housing and just dripping out. Let's see how this one is tight and this one is completely sloppy. That's why we're having problems with our shifter. And this is the same way. It's just, they're supposed to be bushings. Either that or it's just wore out. I don't know if you can read that or not. Hopefully you can, because I'm going to need it. All right, so I'm going to go try to identify this transmission. Okay, so I have determined it is a Muncie, so I'm thrilled about that. I had a Muncie in that 69 Corvette that we had, and man, I love those transmissions. They're so smooth shifting, they're great. It's just we got to get our shifter replaced, so now I can order one. And so here I am at the front of the engine, and I'm looking at all this grease and grime everywhere. There's some leaks right there coming out from underneath the timing cover. So anyway, now it's time to order some stuff. Another thing I noticed weird on this car is that it does not, this little piece right here is a Fender Extension, and these are supposed to have a light right here. So this is from a Camaro. This light right here is supposed to go in this, or whichever light fits it. I don't know. Anyway, somebody put them in here. So when we redo the car, if we repaint and redo everything, that'll need to be replaced with the correct ones. And there's also supposed to be a Pontiac emblem right here. I'm thrilled that there's no rust anywhere. I just can't believe it. So, if this thing was redone in the 80s, then it's been kept somewhere away from the elements for a long time. Remember, this came from Minnesota. All right, so I did a little surgery underneath the card on the shifter, and those real loose shifter linkage where they went to the bottom of the shifter, I just kind of temporarily shored them up with some washers just until I can get the new shifter in, but it's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. It actually pops back to where it's supposed to go. I think that'll make a big difference when we're driving here in a minute. Anyway, so what I want to do now is I want to order all the stuff so I can get this rear differential stop leaking. So I'm going to jack it up, see what kind of fluid it takes, because if it's got where both tires lock going the same direction. So I'm going to jack it up in the middle and see if I turn this tire this way, the other tire, if it goes the same direction, it's positive traction. But if it goes the other direction, it's not, and I'll know what fluid to get. Okay, so I'm going to turn this tire this way, and the other tire is going the opposite. So it is not positive traction. All right, so here we are in the car getting ready to take a nice little drive. I told you before that we drove it a little bit the other day, but it shifted so bad stuff. I took out the shift lever, so it's a lot better now. And I'll just give you a little tour of what it feels like to drive it. And remember, the timing gear whine is kind of annoying. Starts really easy. Take off here and get out on the main road. Still don't have the bushings and the linkage that I Alright, so I've got the car up on some jack stands, and the goal is I want to get the cover off of this differential so that I can get a gasket ordered. I'm just worried about how much fluid is in that thing because it's leaking so bad. I don't want to drive it very much. So the way to do it is just take all these bolts off and let the fluid run out the bottom, and then we'll look at the gasket, get it ordered, and also take the plug out on the other side at the top and just make sure everything, drains really good over the next day or so until I get the gasket. Then we'll clean everything up and put it back together. All right, so I'm glad I did not run this thing very long. This is the amount of fluid that was in the entire diff.
Oof, that's not good.
It's just like a few little drops. So this thing was almost dry. And the plug, when you fill them up till they run out of the plug. And the plug is up above this halfway mark up here. So the level should be like up in here somewhere. But thankfully, it looks like the gears are all okay. I think this thing just sat for years and gaskets dried out and everything just leaked out. Now I've got it jacked up, so I'm going to let it back down, and there'll be some of this pooled up in the back of that thing, and I'll let it run out. And then tomorrow I'll clean it and try to find the gasket for it. But this does not look like the gaskets I see for a 68 Firebird. I don't know what this is, but I'll let you know when I figure it out. All right, so I've got the cover off the differential here, and it's quite a challenge trying to get that thing identified exactly what it is, but this is the key to doing that. See this weird shaped differential cover? There's another one that looks like this too, but this one is the one that looks like this that has 10 bolts. So this is an 8.2 10 bolt differential, which would have come off of like a 68 Camaro, not a Firebird. So that means that nothing I have on this car as far as drivetrain that I have found so far came off of this car. So most of it came from a Camaro. Looks like the motor, and we'll know more when I get it out and can see all the date codes and all that, but it looks like it even came from a Camaro, 68 Camaro. So here's all the bolts that I got. I took them all out, cleaned them, wire brushed them, so they're all nice and clean. Also, whenever you do this to a differential, you need to take this vent out the top. They just pull out and spray it down with some cleaner really good and make sure that it's free, because if that's clogged up, that can cause a leak in your diff. It'll build up pressure in there and can actually make it leak through the gasket. And this is our plug. I cleaned it up. That's what we'll put our fluid back in when we get it back together. And I've also got the surfaces clean, and so tomorrow night I will get some sealant in the gasket, and we will get this thing put back together and fill it up and then take it for a drive.
But you're going to have to wait until next time to see if it all goes as smoothly as he thinks it will. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below and make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss out on any future uploads that we have regarding the 68 Firebird and my truck, my 1978 F100 that we're working on this channel as well. And with that, it's time for our verse of the week, which is Romans 15:13, that says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." See you guys next week. Hope you enjoyed. And always remember, don't retire it if you can rebuild it.
About 20%. Almost 30. It's 30%, isn't it? You're going 50, you're really going 40. 20%. Alright, 10.
52 would be 12 over. I said 52 would be 12 over what you said. 40?
No, the percentage.
Would be 30%.
Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in and watching this week's episode of Rebuild It. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any awesome content. Have a good one.